So after I had practiced meditation, I was like, okay, I know what it feels like to drop into my body now. So then I started implementing it in other places in my life. So for example, when I walk into the kitchen in the morning or for lunch, dinner, okay, body, what do you need today? And it's amazing what your body will start telling you.
Welcome to the Mastering Mindfulness Institute with me, Gina Warfel, a podcast that invites you on a journey to self-trust with your food and body so you can reclaim your health with confidence. As a registered dietitian who has multiple degrees in health, and yet I was constantly at war with my body and couldn't trust myself with food, I've made it my mission to show you that coming into harmony with your food and body is all possible. I challenge conventional and outdated ways of dieting to show you how to step into sovereignty over your food choices and life. I can't wait to share with you the depths of my own journey, as well as thoughts from experts and real human beings on their journey, just like you. Thanks for listening. Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Mastering Mindfulness Institute podcast. I'm so excited for this conversation today because these are my favorite conversations to have. They are always the best soul connected, beautiful conversations because we get to talk about the reality of life, what we go through, the challenges. And I can sit here and speak all day about techniques and strategy and things like that. But where it really matters, where we really get inspired and where we learn and we grow and we change is really from other people. And so today I have the beautiful opportunity to interview Taylor Longworth, who has been a Mastering Mindfulness student who has gone through the whole experience, almost done with all of it, which is takes a dedication, it takes courage, a commitment, but it's been so beautiful to watch her evolution and witness it. And to me, I think that when we can learn from like those real life experiences, that's where we can grow the most and see that there is really new possibility. And so welcome, Taylor. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you and actually for me to be able to hear more about what your experience has been like because we have only had so much time together talking about like your life, your experiences, but that we get to connect here today. And what's really fun is I remember thinking about it really wasn't that long ago. It was in October. So it was really only like 4 months ago that one of my other past students was sharing how she listens to her body and how she checks in with it and she lets it guide her eating. And I remember seeing you just saying, wow, that's so cool. I wish I could do that. Like, that's so cool. That's so inspiring. And now, only a few months later, it's so fun to talk to you. And you're like, well, this is what my body's telling me. This is what it told me. So I would just kind of love to hear about like what you're excited about right now, how you're experiencing life being kind of in your body right now, or what are things like for you?
Yeah. So right now, it's actually just been such a beautiful process that I'm in. And at this point right now, it hasn't always been this way, but right now, I very much so. Like I just got back from the grocery store a minute ago and I walked in and I was like, okay, body, like what do you want to eat this week? And like just letting my body guide me to the foods in the store that I wanted to eat. And yeah, and not just with food, but in everything. I feel like with my decision making with work and relationships right now, really just feeling into my body and seeing what feels expansive for me and trusting that and leaning into that because, I think we had a conversation the other day about what does the timeline look like? Am I moving too fast or am I moving too slow or what is it? But when you lean into those expansive places, the timeline doesn't matter. You're moving at the right pace when your body's leading you and guiding you and really
You mean
dropping that intuition.
with anything
Yeah.
in life?
Yeah, yeah. I'm in a new relationship and it's been beautiful to just let the expansiveness I feel in my body speak to me. And then even the places of contraction, if I feel contraction around a certain decision, I know that that's not my yes yet. And it's totally fine. And I can honor that in my body. And it's been such a beautiful thing to be a part of with and co-create with myself.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think a lot of people don't realize that they have access to that to really be tuned into their body to guide their life choices or their food choices. For some people, they're like, might even be listening to this saying, like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Like, you just don't know what you don't know. So, if you could maybe rewind to, if we could connect back to that time before, maybe before like we started working together, before you were in mastering mindfulness, what was life like for you then?
Yeah. Um, Things that come to my mind most are how dysregulated my nervous system was. I was very disassociated from my body and what it was telling me. It was very much a relationship that felt like war against each other. Like my mind was warring against my body, and I didn't understand why my body was not working for me, you know? And I didn't feel like I was in flow with how I wanted to live, but it was just this fight of being able to achieve it, and then just living in a place of fight or flight all the time, a stress response. I could tell that I was just not regulated and just really trying to survive, honestly.
Yeah.
At the time, I was going through some pretty intense health issues. My GI system had been giving me a lot of trouble, and I was eating the right things. And I was like, man, I'm taking the supplements, I'm eating the right things. My body still doesn't want to work right. It still doesn't want to do what I need it to do and function properly. And it was so frustrating. And what I didn't realize is that I can follow all the protocols all day long, but until my mind and my body are working together, there's still going to be a disconnect in what should be happening. And so because of that, it did manifest physically in my body, but then also emotionally, I had anxiety about food, and I had anxiety about my health and decisions that I needed to make because I didn't feel aligned. I didn't feel at peace with what was happening, and I didn't understand that um, I could work alongside my body, and it really was working for me. I just wasn't giving it what it needed. And I
Mm.
wasn't nurturing the mind like it needed, and I wasn't nurturing the body, and I didn't have the understanding and knowledge of how when you come into alignment with yourself and you start discovering your most authentic being and in breath work and learning nervous system regulation and how to calm your nervous system, how much just naturally falls into alignment. And
Yes.
then the protocols didn't even matter that much anymore, you know?
Right.
Which, yeah, I was like, oh, I don't need all these supplements. I
That's
just need
what I
to
tell
calm my nerves.
people, but people are like, I don't get what you're saying. And so, yes, I love that you said that because I'm like, wow, I'm not the only person that's saying that now. That it's like when your nervous system, your mind, everything, when you create that safety, everything comes in alignment. You don't really need all the programs and plans anymore. It's like your body just kind of balances out, and then you might need like supplements and stuff or whatever, but it's so different. And I think that word alignment is so interesting. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but for me, the word alignment feels obvious. It's like when everything kind of, it's like an inner chiropractic adjustment. It's like my mind is right in alignment, my thoughts, my feelings. It's like, it's so hard to explain, but I was trying to explain that to somebody the other day, and he was like, that sounds like one of those woo spiritual words. I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, you don't know what I'm talking about? So I don't know if you have any thoughts on what alignment means to you. I had a hard time explaining what that means.
Yeah. No, I feel like at this point, I have two visual ideas in my head about what alignment feels like and looks like for me. I get this visual in my head of my mind, body, soul, heart, all just physically aligning, just being in the same position,
Yep.
linear position. And when that happens, it just feels like such harmony in my body. There's no resistance. I feel very in flow with what's supposed to happen, even if it's a difficult conversation or a no that I need to turn from. It just feels so right. And it's like the baseline is peace, even when these emotions come in and out of if I do feel anxiety creeping in, or if I do feel sadness or whatever that may be, there's still a baseline of peace underneath it all. And it's so much easier just to reel it back in and come back into that alignment, to that center, to that
Mhm.
groundedness. Groundedness is a really good word, I feel like, to use when
Mhm.
you talk about alignment. in just my opinion. And then
Yeah.
when I also think about alignment, I think about how when there's like so much going on around you and you're not really sure who your most authentic being is. You've never explored who you most authentically are. You're really conditioned to the world around you and to the societal norms of what you should be doing or what your life should look like or your path should look like. And you have all these self-judgments and comparisons. You're not really in tune with your most authentic being. And for me, alignment has really been honing in and just pulling away from these societal norms and judgments of what my path should look like and really just honing in to what feels most authentic to me and my being. And that has changed everything, like everything. So many doors have opened up just from stepping into just being authentic and
Mm.
and honoring what feels true for me and right for me and being okay with that. It's been the most joyous process I've ever experienced. And mastering mindfulness has been the key role player in all of it, teaching
Wow.
me how to even explore what my most authentic being would look like. Because so many people will say, well, I don't even know what I want. I didn't know what I wanted either. I didn't know what my most authentic being looked like. I didn't know how I wanted to live or, I had ideas of what I thought might feel nice or be nice. But then a lot of those were still structured around maybe how my family lived or how my friends were living or how my role models or mentors were living. It wasn't what I truly felt aligned with me. And
Mm.
so, yeah,
Yeah, I think a
alignment.
lot of people ask themselves those questions, just like you said, where most people can spell out exactly what they don't want, but they actually have a hard time really concretely saying, this is what I really desire and it's for me. Or we can pull out all the ways that someone said that we should do this, or we should look like this, or we should eat this way. And it's like, and then it gets confusing. We're overwhelmed, right? It's like I have all these different resources and people telling me I should eat this way, or have a morning routine this way, or exercise this way, or look this way. And it's like, wait, what do I really, really want and desire? And what is me like pleasing other people or feeling like I have to because I'm not good enough or because I have to be a certain way? It's just like so interesting. And I think a lot of people start with those really confusing experiences, just like you said.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I also I can really relate to what you said too about when you're starting and it's like you're just feeling all of these things, like you're feeling a lot of resistance. I think that that's a really good way to describe it. Like when you're starting to ask yourself deeper questions of like, I don't really know what I want, but something isn't quite working for me. And it's like, I think that that's when people know that they're ready to start doing the deeper work is when they start asking these questions like, I don't understand myself. I don't know. I'm not really sure what I'm feeling. I'm feeling a lot of resistance. Everything feels hard. I'm doing all these protocols. I'm doing all this stuff. My body isn't budging. It just feels hard, right? Is that
Yeah.
kind of like how you explained it?
Yeah, I think initially for me, when you start having all these awarenesses of what your life looks like, when you kind of pull yourself out of the situation and get a bird's eye view of your life and your awareness starts to increase around your behaviors or your patterns or the things that you don't like or enjoy, it can be really uncomfortable because you're like, wow, this really sucks. I don't like the way I'm acting or I don't like the way I'm feeling. And so, but it's like once you have the awareness, then you have a starting place to go. You
Hmm.
can get an idea of, okay, I see what I'm doing, and then stay open and curious. Okay, I see I'm have these patterns, I'm acting this way. Why am I doing that? There
Hmm.
has to be something else, right? There's got to be something else out there, or this isn't the end all be all. This isn't how I have to live forever. But
Yeah.
it's figuring out the piece in between that, the
Mm.
bridge to seeing the change. And I think a huge part of that bridge and going on that journey is learning how to be with yourself, learning yourself, getting to know yourself, and tapping into that part of your most authentic being, discovering that, what is it that I truly want? Well, I don't know. Okay, well, how can we figure it out? and just stay open and curious without so much self-judgment around what you should be doing or what's expected of you.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. A ton of discomfort initially, and even now, still discomfort will come up. Absolutely. Like we're in a human body, living this human life
Right.
experience. Like
Totally.
discomfort will always be present in some
Yeah.
form or another. Um, but I think in the initial part of the journey, people run because it's like, oh, they're confronted with this insane amount of discomfort sometimes, and it feels like too much. But in my journey, when I leaned into that the most, that's when the most breakthrough happened for me.
Yeah. And I would imagine like for you, like for me, it took a lot of courage to take that initial step of like, I'm going to go into my own deeper self-discovery and say yes to that. How were you feeling when you decided to do that?
Mm, yeah, when you start to really lay eyes on the foundation that you set your life upon, whether that be religious beliefs or just accustomed beliefs that you've gained from your family or friends growing up, when you really start to look into that foundation and see, how is this serving me? Like what really feels true and valid in this for me? It feels terrifying because you're shaking up the whole foundation that you've built your life on, which
Mm,
feels very unsafe. I felt so much unsafety in my body. I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm taking a jackhammer and just tearing up the foundation that I've built my entire life on. And what is this going to look like for me? Does this mean I'm like running away from my beliefs that I've always felt and been guided by? Like, no, like that's not it. I did take a good hard look at a lot of them, and a lot of them did change. A lot of my beliefs about my life and what I wanted for myself and how I want to live did change. And that's okay. It's been a beautiful refinement. But some of the things I found to just be so true for myself still, and they totally serve me.
mm,
And so it was initially a really terrifying process of, oh my gosh, am I really safe? If I start to question what I've been taught my whole life,
mm.
that pulls me out of the safety that I've been so conformed to, which feels terrifying. So,
Wow.
yeah, so that was kind of the initial start of my journey. Like, wow, I took a big move. I moved
Yep.
away from home and um, left all kind of forms of safety in a relationship that I was in previously, the safety of my hometown, the safety of my actual physical home back home, and all the things, and then just really started to put a spotlight on how how are my thoughts and beliefs serving me? Are they
Yeah.
limiting me? Are they really serving me? And
Mm.
yeah.
That takes a lot of courage to being willing to say, I'm going to take a jackhammer to my belief systems.
Mhm.
Those were not my words, those were yours.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. The concrete was getting torn up.
But to have the courage to say, I love myself enough that I'm willing to get uncomfortable, to let go and really question and shake up the things that are not serving me in my life in order to let it all fall apart to create something that is my deepest soul desires instead of staying comfortably the same. Because I think it's so much easier for us to just stay comfortably in pain.
Mhm.
That takes a lot of courage.
Mhm.
So what was so you kind of dove in and you said yes, and it was a bit messy. You're like breaking up all these beliefs and questioning everything. Um, what else, how else did that process look for you? What kind of came next when you started like breaking up these beliefs and questioning things?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the next big piece for me was something you taught me. It was about how emotions in our body are just sensation. It doesn't mean that we're unsafe. It doesn't mean that the world is ending or it feels like you're dying sometimes. I remember telling you that once I traced the belief back, I was like, this feels like I'm dying. And I felt crazy for saying that and so dramatic. But when you realize the mind's job and how it plays a role in your life is just to create safety, you're like, wow, these things I'm feeling in my body, or they're just sensation. They're just sensation. And they're calling for my attention right now. How can I attend to my needs? How can I attend to my body? How can I attend to my mind and my emotions? And once you learn to do that properly, it's like, okay, I can move through this. And then once you move through it, and then you truly just feel what's present and just be in what's present, you learn to process and start integrating things that you haven't. And so as I started to navigate this journey of realizing what I'm feeling is just sensation in my body, I don't have to create a story around it. I can just feel it for what it is, let it be, make some space for it, and not suppress so much. It was such a game changer. It was such a
Mm.
game changer.
How so?
Yeah.
How does that affect your life, do you think, when you start feeling what's there?
Mm. For me, I feel like it's pulled me into presence so much more because
Yeah.
when a feeling comes up or an emotion comes up, instead of suppressing it, like whether it's tears or an uncomfortable emotion, anyways, um, I it just pulls me back into presence because I'm like, oh, I feel you, I see you, I can make space for you right now. And it typically doesn't last that long anyways. So it's like if I feel anxiety when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh man, okay, anxiety, I see you. You're here today. What's going on? I've got some room for you. Like, and you start befriending these things instead of suppressing them because like what you resist will persist, right? And
100%.
so that was totally a part of my journey too, is once I started allowing myself to fully feel and making space for what I was feeling, it's like all of the old things that I had suppressed started to slowly come up as they felt safe enough to come up. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is things come up when they're ready
Hmm.
and it's okay. And so it just like it kind of goes back to that foundational thing of all the things that I had compressed down and packed down and suppressed for so long when they started to surface and I made space for it and room for it, my life felt so much more free. I was
Yep.
like, oh, like I'm not bound by these things.
Yeah,
Like,
isn't that funny that we almost tend to think that feeling these feelings like sadness or fear or anxiousness or whatever we're feeling, it almost at the time it feels like a weakness. And so we're like, no, huh, shove it down, shove it down. And then we might like shove down 20 years of fear or sadness because we think that it's like bad and it's a weakness. I know I really did. But then these shoved down feelings like created this charged emotion in my body. And like you said, what you resist will persist. And then it always followed me. And then I noticed that like there's a direct connection between losing control over my food and not wanting to feel the feeling that was there. And so then the more that I pushed down that feeling, the worse my food cravings got. And it became worse and worse and worse. And then I had this deep fear around feeling the feelings. And it was, I would do anything to run and avoid feeling the feelings. And then when I
mhm,
finally just popped the seal and I felt the feelings, I was like, oh, I've been fearing this for so many years and using coping mechanisms and avoidance and suppressing it with food or distraction or whatever. And it was so much effort and tension and resistance all built up inside of me. And then I felt the feeling and it was like, oh, and then it moved through me and it wasn't that bad. And I was like, oh,
mhm.
everything that, like they say in The Alchemist, the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. It's like, oh, that wasn't that bad. And then the more that I felt, like you said, it's like the more that you feel these feelings, it's not that bad. And you start to feel peace in all of it. And it's like, oh, it's okay. And my nervous system isn't so dysregulated and triggered because I'm having a normal feeling, which is like a part of our human experience, right? It's like
Yeah.
so different.
Hmm. Yeah. And that it totally helped me rebuild trust with myself and my body. On the physical level with my health, I was like, man, I don't trust my body to do what it needs to do. And so then that distrust carried over with other places, like with mental trust. I don't trust myself to make the right decision, or I don't trust myself to, make the right calls on things or whatever it may be. And then once I realized, like, okay, I can make space to feel and once I truly allow myself to feel and then we get on the other side of it, I was like, oh, okay, okay, I can trust myself. We did it. I got you. We worked through it. We did it. And then it just keeps reaffirming this trust within myself, and I'm like, okay, I really got you. I got you. It's all
Mhm.
good.
And that's the best feeling that you can have, right? Is that deep, I've got you no matter what. I can trust you. Like, what a beautiful, deep
Mm.
thing that you'll never lose now. Like, you'll never lose that deep, oh, I can trust you. I've got you. I'm here for you through whatever decisions we need to make, whether it's related to food or life decisions or whatever it is, it's like, I'm here, I've got your back, and I'm listening to you
Mm,
from that place of like, I trust in my feelings so much. I trust in feeling them. I trust feeling in my body. I trust in my experience so deeply that
mm,
like I trust myself so fully and unconditionally.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think the first part, in the beginning, it's so common for people to feel like the fear of going into it and the confusion of like learning about yourself, seeing how your beliefs come up, seeing how like the places where you haven't trusted yourself, and it can feel like confusing and ungrounding. But then the more you start listening, it's like the more you start to build that solid trust. So I guess how did things evolve from there? What did they start to look like as you started feeling your feelings more and listening and tuning in a bit more? How did things evolve?
Yeah, so man, I mean, things really do get uncomfortable and messy as things start coming up that you've suppressed for years or not allowed yourself to think about for a long time. When those things start coming up and you allow yourself to work through it, it can be really messy. Like how many times have you watched me just sob through a call? A lot of times it's been beautiful, happy tears of just gratitude and just so happy I've been able to release. And other times it is like, this is so uncomfortable. And so, but like you mentioned earlier in this call, when I saw one of your students talk about how she just leaned in, she was so in tune with her body and could just listen to what it wanted to eat or what decisions she should make. I was like, man, that seems so far-fetched. Like I've done the coursework. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be working for me. And you just get to a point. It's almost like learning a new language. In the beginning,
Totally.
yeah, it's like in the
Yes.
beginning, you have no clue how to even speak it, how to understand what's being said. But the more you're around it and the more you practice it and you're submersed in it, it becomes more fluent. And
Yes.
I feel like now, after I've just continued to show up for myself, that just making the dedication to myself to show up, to sit in meditation in the morning or at night or just in my car whenever I had the opportunity just to check in with myself. Hey, how are you doing today? What do you need? I'm a master at taking care of other people, but when I came to myself, I had no clue how to take care of myself. It,
Hmm.
it was it was foreign. I was like, how does this work? How can I know how to take care of someone else so well, but not myself?
Hmm.
And so when I leaned into that and started the practice of just checking in with myself and saying, hey, like, does this feel expansive to you today? Or does
Yeah.
this feel
Yeah.
contracting?
Take me into that. Like, really tell me, like, what is it like when you're tuning in and you're listening and you're trusting your body? Like, what is your experience like? Take me through that.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to start talking about meditation a little bit because
Okay.
when I first joined or when I first got on this journey of going inward and working through my stuff, when people would talk about meditation, I'm like, yeah, that's so woo woo. Like I grew up in a very religious environment and they don't talk a lot about meditation. I didn't know what it was. I was like, who are you praying to? What is this about? And was super like turned off by it. And the more I was exposed to it, I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff is incredible. Like, why isn't everyone doing this? And it's just a matter of using the breath and calming the mind, telling the mind to shut up for a minute and to let your body talk. Your body's talking to you constantly. We have a body that has sensations and senses and all these things to speak to us, but we're taught growing up to shut it up. Don't cry, don't feel, suppress it. If you cry, you're, going to timeout, whatever it may be. So we're raised in this environment of suppression and so when I started dropping into my meditation, I was like, wow, my body can be so loud, my heart can be so loud, and I can just feel all these things. And that really launched me into knowing how to communicate with my body or how to listen and just silence my mind to get to that place. And so in meditation is called a practice for a reason, right? You don't
Hmm.
go to baseball, you go to baseball practice every week for the game to get ready for the game.
Right.
Well, you practice meditation to get ready for the moment of
Life.
insanity, or the
Yeah.
moments of anxiety, because then you've already practiced. You know how to calm yourself down. You know how to regulate. You know how to jump back in and tap back into your body and to bring that calm, or to just be with what's there without making rash decisions or going nutso, right?
Yeah.
And so after I had practiced meditation, I was like, okay, I know what it feels like to drop into my body now. So then I started implementing it in other places in my life. So for example, when I walk into the kitchen in the morning or for lunch, dinner, okay, body, what do you need today? It's amazing what your body will start telling you. It'll crave vegetables or other things that you haven't thought about in a while because it knows it needs the nutrients. And it's so fun. It has been the most fun practice to do.
Isn't
Or
it?
just,
Isn't it so fun when you can
yeah,
get to that place where you're like, oh, my body has actually been speaking to me all this time, but everyone told me not to trust it. So I've only been using my mind. But when I actually just practice connecting this in my body, it's telling me all these things that it wants, and then it gets actually really fun.
yes, it really is. And what I love so much about the principles you teach and the practice that you offer is it's so applicable to every area of your life. It's
Mhm.
not just for food. Like, honestly, Gina, I've told you this before. I joined your course not for the food piece. I was like, no, no, no. I know there's something to this. I need this in other areas of my life. I was making big job decisions and career change decisions and moving across the country and doing all these things. I was like, I need insight to my intuition better. I need to know how to listen to myself better and to be tuned in. Um, and so even, now I'll use this example. It's kind of funny, but I just got into this new relationship with this guy that's so incredible. And I really want to just be present in all that's here and not make decisions that I'm not ready to make yet, and all the things, right, that you think about when you get into a relationship. And so even when it came to like our first kiss, I was like, does this feel expansive to me right now? Like, does it feel peaceful and expansive to kiss you right now? And there was a time where I said no. I was like, no, it doesn't really feel expansive to me right now. Like, let's wait. And he's so precious. He honored that and was like, absolutely. And so I'm using these principles not just with my food, but in
Yeah.
just daily life decisions. If it
Yeah.
doesn't feel just open and beautifully expansive to me, then it's my no. And then I
Yeah.
know.
And also, I think it's important that people know it's a process to be able to get there.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to just say, like, well, can I feel in my body what's expansive and contracting? And you got there through the commitment of looking at all the places of where you weren't connected to your body, or looking up or looking at those places. It's so hard to like explain, but like, if we're so living in our minds where we're thinking all the time and we're only using our minds, and we're disconnected from feeling our bodies, what feels expansive, what feels contracting, it's hard to like access that wisdom of our knowing, of our intuition, of expansion, contraction. So sometimes it takes time, right? Like it might take a 6 month experience of being able to move our awareness like from our mind and exploring what does feel expansive, contracting. What does my body tell me about what to eat? Where I think some people try to do that right off the bat and then they're frustrated and they're like, I can't do it. But
Mhm.
they haven't taken the time to practice, like you said, using meditation, coming into the body, practicing to listen to it and connect to it over time. Because it definitely is something that does take time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been on this journey for quite some time now. I started learning about a little bit of mindfulness, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I jumped into mastering mindfulness about 9 months ago. Has it been that long? And it's not until recently that I feel really in flow with what's happening. But there are still times, this is where I love that you teach about just being open and curious. And so as you observe your decisions, like if I make a decision that I don't enjoy making, so like let's say I just mindlessly go eat a piece of cake or something, and I'm like, I really didn't need that. I didn't want to do that. I'm saying, okay, that's okay. Why did I do that? Let's just stay open and curious. I'll see where I made that decision. I was
Heck
really needing
yeah.
something else, and I just leaned into it in another way instead of just giving my emotions the attention it needed in that moment. And so, but there's not as much self-judgment around those decisions anymore because I have more grace for myself. I have more love for myself and compassion to say, oh, I see you. I see you. Like you were struggling today. That's all right. I see you.
That's beautiful. And that is like the deep self-love of I got you. Like it's okay,
Mhm.
no judgment. Let's explore. Let's get curious. Like you said, like, I wonder what's happening here. I wonder what I was needing. And it's
Mhm.
all okay.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. What do you think have been the most helpful tools or practices for you that you do, either that you learned from mastering mindfulness or something that you learned from yourself? Like, what's been the most
Mm.
valuable for you, do you think? Or still is?
Yeah. There's been some pretty vital, like, turning points. I read a book called The Presence Process, and
Love that
that
book.
was pretty eye-opening. I I didn't want to live in the past because I was fearing so much, or worrying so much about what had happened, and then don't want to live in the future because it wasn't resonating with me. It made me fear what could happen, and I just really wanted to be tapped into the present moment and be fully with my people and with myself and the experience I was having. And so learning the practice of being still, and part of that is through meditation, slowing my body down, slowing my mind down, kind of retraining my brain and rewiring it to move slower and to just be in tune with what I need. I
Mm.
think, I come from a very religious background. And so when I kind of stepped away from that culture and environment, um, I really still wanted to be in tune with the divine and God and the higher spirit, whatever you want to call it, because it's important to me to be connected. I know we're part of something much bigger. Um, whatever you believe in, there's a lot of people believe there's something much bigger out there, something bigger than us, and that's why we're here. And being connected to that, and staying just in communion with that has been a really beautiful experience for me.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people who come from a religious background fear a holistic way of living, or they hear these practices of meditation and or somatic breathwork experiences, and they think, oh gosh, like that's a taboo thing, or we can't talk about that. And it's been in those places where I've found the deepest connection with the divine, and it's been so beautiful. And
Mm.
so that's been another resource that's been just personally tailored to what works for me.
Hmm.
And community has been big for me too. We're not meant to walk the journey alone. We're just not.
No, we're not.
And really plugging in with people who are like-minded and who are running the same race. If they know there's something else out there, there's another way of living. You don't have to live the same day over and over again. You just
Yep.
don't. If you've got this pull and these desires to live differently and be different and just embody your most authentic being, it's so possible. It's so
Hmm.
possible. But my community's been a big part of that too.
Mm. Beautiful. When you say community, where do you find that community? Like um, is that like within like online type space or in person, or where do you find your communities?
Yeah, so initially it was online. I was in the Gutsy Health Academy and connected with some people there. And then after I joined your course with Mastering Mindfulness, really connected with some people, and still stay in touch with them even after, we move on to different levels. And that's kind of evolved into other connections. I feel like once you do some of the work and you just you're vibrating at a different frequency, you start drawing in people who are like-minded, and they start coming out of the woodworks, and it will surprise you.
Yeah.
So it's been a little bit of both. Absolutely, the online community was what kickstarted it all and started getting me plugged in, and was so encouraging. I feel like when you start on a journey that is so foreign to you, it feels really isolating and lonely, especially if no one around you in your immediate circle is doing anything of the sorts. And for
Yeah.
me, I moved halfway across the country, left my friends and family, and I was embarking on this new journey of figuring out, okay, who am I and what do I want out of this life? Where's my place here? What am I supposed to be doing? It can feel very isolating. But once you just say yes, and sometimes when you look fear in the face and it's your next edge of growth, the best decisions and most rewarding things I have ever made were saying yes in the fear. And it has just given me tenfold of what I've ever could have dreamt. even in this very moment. So it's been so beautiful, and I'm just so grateful for you and your program. And I'm not saying this because I'm on a podcast. I'm not saying this because you're my friend, but I will forever sing the praises of the principles you teach, and how so graciously you hold space for people, Gina. It is beautiful and such a gift, and mm, you're
Thank
special.
you. Thank you. I really so admire like your willingness every time. I see when you meet that edge of fear and you meet it and you say yes to yourself, and it's been so beautiful because it's not an easy journey to keep constantly having the courage to say yes and to lean in and go into those places that are scary and the fears and the dedication that it takes. Like it really takes such like a fierce, relentless, like I'm just gonna stay in it and keep fighting for myself. So it has been so beautiful to watch you just show up and fight for yourself and keep going to really step into like this ninja level of mastery. And I can see that when people show up and they're like, this is what I learned, this is what my body told me, this is what I'm learning from my experience. And it's like, the judgment is gone. There's no fear. It's just pure learning and loving and listening. And it is like it takes such a commitment to get there. It's so impressive. It's so beautiful to watch your dedication. Do
Mm.
you have any advice for someone who maybe is feeling a little bit lost or wants to go into their deeper self-discovery, has a lot of questions about themselves, and maybe is feeling that not, I don't know if it's maybe not feeling like they're quite hitting the spot of what they have to fully experience. Do you have any advice or wisdom?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think, I mentioned earlier about how when we feel places of resistance or um, these discomforting situations, whether it be anxiety, depression, a lot of things that tons of people in our society struggle with on a daily basis. I feel like a lot of people are really quick to suppress those things, just to survive and stay in survival mode. Um, but man, there is totally another side, and that's not all there is. And if I had any advice, it would just be to lean into that. Stay curious about why you're feeling that way, and reach out. Like it's okay to get help and reach out and say, man, I just feel like there's more. I'm really struggling. What's going on? Can you take my hand and let's partner through this together? And whether that be mastering mindfulness or some other program or friend or just mentor therapy, whatever it may be, um, just lean into that discomfort because it's here. It has something for you. It's nothing is wasted. Nothing is just by happen chance, in my opinion. I think it's all part of your journey, and it's orchestrated just how it needs to be. And when you just lean into that and be present for what's really here in front of your face right now and show up for yourself in that, that's where the magic starts to happen. Because you're going to have hard days. No matter where you're at in your journey, there's always going to be hard days. There will be discomfort because we're living this thing called life.
Mm-hmm.
But those hard moments don't last forever. They don't. The sunshine is always somewhere in the sky, no matter if you're under a rain cloud or not. The rain just doesn't last forever. And something that I was reminded of this past year was in when you're in the middle of a rainstorm, right? It's loud, there's thunder and lightning, and it's crazy, and you can't see the sunshine, and you're just like, I've got this torrential downpour and I can't get out of it. The sun just doesn't exist anymore, and you just feel hopeless and beat down by the rain and weather. But that doesn't mean the sun ever went away. It's still there. That's like a universal truth for me. The sun just doesn't go away. It's still there. And but you have to have the rain to have growth. Like if we never had rain, we would never have growth
Mm.
on this earth. And it's such a vital part of your journey and your experience. And if you just let the rain hit you, soak it in, take it for what it is, just know the sunshine is out there, but you have to be committed to yourself. You have to say yes to yourself. And
Mm.
I don't think there's a single person on the planet that doesn't love themselves enough to say yes to themselves. Because if they're hearing this, if they're here, they're still choosing life. And
Yeah.
yeah, they love
Sometimes we
themselves
just
enough to do that.
haven't found the way yet, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing that. And I think that there's so much wisdom from everything that you shared, from leaning into your fears to feeling confused and overwhelmed and still moving through it anyway, and really trusting yourself through the process and taking the time, the dedication to meditate and listen to your body and tune into what it's saying and practice it and see it all as a practice until you're really listening to your body and letting it guide you in your food and your life choices and your experiences. And I think that there's so much wisdom that came from this conversation. So thank you. I'm so honored to be a part of your life and your journey. And I'm so honored to be able to interview you just about your life today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Gina. That's been beautiful.
Mm. Okay,
Mm.
guys, I hope you got a went on a beautiful journey with us today. And if you are feeling like you are resonating with Mastering Mindfulness, we have another group opening up soon, I believe May 2024. So feel free to check it out if you're feeling called to joining us. And I hope you got lots of good wisdom. You took some good notes, and it's inspiring you to just keep going deeper. We'll see you guys next time.